Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today let us try to understand and interpret another very important teachings of Christ, or another very important command of Christ, which is in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. In Aramaic language, which is the mother tongue of Jesus, it goes like this: Tu be hon, demitabelin, Dehinun mith nachamin. Let me repeat it again. Tu behon demitabelin dehunun mith nachamin. So what is this strange teaching? Blessed are those who mourn, they shall be comforted. You see, this is, Jesus said it in the passive voice. When we suffer, when we mourn, it doesn't mean we can comfort ourselves or somehow we could console ourselves. No, he did not mean that. What he meant is we shall be comforted. It was expressed in the passive voice. So who is going to comfort us then? Who is going to console us? It's God. In fact, in life, true consolation in the end, in the final analysis, comes from God, from nowhere else, from no one else, but in God. Of course, people could also comfort us. We need the human comfort. We are not denying it. Especially when we mourn, when we suffer, when we face difficult situations, tough circumstances, we need our friends, their words of encouragement and the comfort and whatever the consolation they could give unto us. We must never reject it, of course. We must appreciate it. And also we must not tell people who suffer, well, sorry, I can't do much for you. I am human, I am weak, I am limited, I cannot console you. Please go to God and try to learn to depend on Him. We cannot say that. I think that will be very inhuman. We should show our compassion, our concern. But ultimately, human consolation is limited, infinite, naturally, because humans are finite beings. Human consolation is finite, since we are finite beings. Every situation, every difficult situation we face, we must learn to depend upon God. We must learn to rely upon God. So if I am facing 1,000 difficulties today, 1,000 situations of suffering and heartaches, then I have 1,000 opportunities to get closer to Him, to seek consolation from Him, and to get comfort from Him. You see, in order to do that, we need this change in our perspective. What Christ is here articulating is actually a grand vision about life, a grand perspective about life. Life cannot be lived meaningfully and profoundly without a proper vision of life. So that's what he is trying to articulate and trying to give unto us in his gospel message. The gospel means, the good news means a grand vision about life, a grand vision about our universe, a grand vision, a deep vision about God. Without such a vision, life becomes meaningless, actually, empty. and dry and arid, then we become like animals, like beasts. We would just live, eat, sleep, and do other things and watch TV, talk to our friends and play cricket and football, etc. But no meaning, no deep meaning actually. Simply existing, it's not living, existing. Just maintaining our physical frames, our physical body somehow. Since we are here, since we were born on earth, since we are already here, simply somehow managing life. It's existence, not living. In order to live properly, we need to understand life properly. We need to cultivate a deep vision about human life, which is precisely and which is exactly what Christ is providing us with in this message. Yeah. So, there is no situation, there is no suffering, difficulty that can separate us from God, that can separate us from Jesus. Especially when we suffer, God also suffers with us. God also there suffering with us, encouraging us and pushing us forward to face these difficulties. It doesn't mean God is going to suffer on behalf of us. It's not, God would not say, well, okay, you get out of this situation, I will do it for you. I will suffer it for you, I will try to fix the problem. So you just go out of the situation, get out of the situation and then relax. And then don't think about anything, I will take care of it. No. Of course, God could do it, but if God does it, we become immature. So every time there is a difficulty, there is a situation of suffering and hardship, we would not face it, we would run away. And then look for a substitute. Look for someone who can do it on behalf of me or do it for me. God has not created us like that. God wants us to face our difficulties, hardships and sufferings and heartaches. Then only we become spiritually mature. Then only we begin to see the real meaning of life. Then only we become resilient as humans. But of course, God is there encouraging us, guiding us, supporting us, pushing us forward. But He cannot do the thing for us, we have to do it for ourselves. It is like facing an examination. Like if you want to be a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer, you have to face your own examinations. Another person cannot do it for you or on your behalf. You need to face those examinations, even though they may be very difficult, very tough, or seldom majority would pass them, but still no one else could do it for yourself. Facing difficulties in life is also something like that. Or it's like sleeping, actually. Another person cannot sleep on behalf of me. I need to sleep for myself. Then only my body will be refreshed and rejuvenated and recharged. Another person cannot sleep on behalf of me. My own body needs it. There is no substitute to that process. Or it's like eating, taking proper nourishment. Another person cannot eat on behalf of me or drink or take beverages on behalf of me. I need to maintain my own body. I need to eat for myself. If another person eat, that's for his own benefit. That is for the nourishment of his or her own body. So likewise, hardships, difficulties, sufferings, agonies, heartaches, etc., I need to face them. Then only I become spiritually mature. God is there to guide us, help us. So in fact, when a person suffers, God also suffers with that person. But God will not suffer on behalf of that person, but with that person. You see, with the coming of Christ, one thing we know, that God is with us in all the situations. No matter what, God cannot leave us. God cannot abandon us. He is with us, suffering with us. Because now He is with us. He is Emmanuel. He had taken a decision to enter into human history and to struggle with people. But in the process, we become spiritually deep. We become spiritually mature. Because with His help, we are facing the situation, we are facing the problem, and then learning from it. That's why those who are running away from sufferings, those who are running away from hardships, difficulties, actually are running away from God. Because they don't experience God in their sufferings then. If we try to run away from our sufferings, our difficulties, if we are trying to look for shortcuts, if we try to kind of short circuit the process, then we are also trying to run away from God. Because no matter what the difficulty is, no matter how unbearable the hardship is, God is there in that experience, in that process. So why don't we become a little bit more courageous, little bit more brave, and then face it, go through it, and experience the stirrings of God in it. So that is His invitation. That is why those who are running away from sufferings and difficulties do not know the real meaning of life. The one who has never suffered, or the one who has never faced one's sufferings, do not know anything about life. That person do not know the deeper meaning of life. He or she does not know what life is about. The other thing is, when we face our difficulties, like Christ says, we become mature and wiser. Because the true wisdom in life comes from difficulties, hardships, challenges, sufferings, and other kind of agonies we undergo. They make us truly wise persons, wise men and women. Then we can become blessing unto other people. We could also give guidance unto other people, because we know something about life through experiences. By experiencing those things, we know something about life. So we can become actually real shepherds of other people. So that is the beauty about this. If you take Christ Himself, He suffered enormously without committing any sin, without committing any injustice, or without becoming any burden unto other people, or without breaking any conventions, any laws, without harming anyone. He suffered enormously. So when He suffered, how did He get His comfort? From God. So this is His own life experience, when He says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." Right? When they feel sad, when people feel down, when they feel deeply and hopeless, they should go to God. That's what Jesus did. When He underwent tremendous sufferings, He relied on God. He did not complain. He did not blame other people. He did not curse other people. He totally and absolutely and utterly depended upon God, and God alone. So that is very important, this experience, because life calls for certain amount of sufferings. Christ never said, follow me, you will be free from difficulties, you will be free from sufferings. No, he never said. He never made false promises. What did he say? Take up your cross daily and follow me. So take up your cross daily and follow me. Life involves certain difficulties. Life is difficult. It's never meant to be a bed of roses or a cakewalk. There are certain amount of sufferings involved. So we need to become brave and suffer and face sufferings and then come out triumphantly with his help. So therefore, there are no false promises with Christ or with his teachings. So therefore, we should become realistic about life. We must not think of life in a very unrealistic manner, in kind of a, airy-fairy manner, thinking, this is going to be a, kind of a dreamy world, a perfect world. No, the world is not perfect. The world involves sufferings. There are situations of sufferings in the world, in the society, in human history. And God knows it. Since God is perfect, since God is absolutely mature, God is capable of accepting imperfections in the world, struggles in the world, and human sinfulness in the world. But since we are not perfect as humans, we cannot accept them. You see, only a perfect God could accept the imperfections of people and the imperfections in the world and in the human society, because God is perfect. Since God is perfect, he could accept the human brokenness. But since we as humans, since we are not perfect, we would complain. We would dream of a perfect world where there are no problems, difficulties, suffering, hardships, where there are no human weaknesses, where there are only perfect human beings, you see. Now, can you see the difference between human perspective and God's perspective? If we think of such a world, or if we think of people without any shortcomings, that means we cannot handle human imperfections. We cannot handle human weaknesses. Why? We are not perfect. But God could accept this world as it is. God could accept us as we are with all our sinful actions, because he is perfect. His love is perfect. So it takes a perfect God to accept our imperfect world. If God is not perfect, he will reject this world, or he might have destroyed this world by now, but he has not done it because he understands us. Since he understands our weaknesses perfectly, he could also forgive us perfectly. So now you can see, in order to really understand Jesus' teaching, we need to understand the nature of God. Because we have most of the time wrong understanding, wrong concepts about God. So that is why we come to wrong conclusions about life, about other people, about the world we live in. So the more we understand God's perspective, or the more we understand the gospel message, the more we could love people, the more we could forgive them, the more we could embrace this imperfect world and do our contribution. So if we think about like this, if we live in a perfect world, there is no need for love actually. Then Christ will never teach us to love one another as I have loved you. He does not have to say that, because people are perfect. People don't commit mistakes. People don't commit sins. People don't fight, quarrel, and steal from each other, or harm each other, or try to destroy each other. It's so perfect, there is no need for love in that case. But he told us to love one another because we need love. We need to love one another. We need to take care of one another because we are not perfect, because we are not spiritually mature. We are not like God yet. So therefore, the brokenness in the world, the imperfections in the world are means for us to love one another and to get closer to one another and to care for one another. So therefore, the world we live in is in a way is the best world for us to become real Christians. And this is the best world we have, the world we have now, for us to witness to Christ. We must not be dreaming of a kind of a imaginary world or blaming God. In fact, there are people who are angry with God for creating this world like this. They would complain why there is so much injustice, why so much divisions, why so much violence and bloodsheds and killing. Of course, that's a legitimate concern. We must question like that. But you see, the world, God did not make it like this. We created this mess in the world. These scenarios, we created them. It's not God. Of course, God gave us perfect freedom. God made us vulnerable, that's true, so that we could love one another. Since we are imperfect, we could love one another. We could take care of each other. We could support each other. But most people cannot accept this vulnerability, this fragility in the world. And also they blame God for making this world a vulnerable and a fragile world. So then what is the solution to this vulnerability, this violence, bloodshed? Is love, is the unconditional love. So that we could, through love, we could transform this world into a better world. Therefore, the situation in the world, the conditions and the predicaments in the world are not hindrances for God's plan. Actually, they give us opportunities for us to truly witness to Christ. And God is not responsible for the evil in the world, injustices in the world. It's a work of human sin. It's a fruit of human sinfulness. It's a fruit of human selfishness. We need to understand it as such. And God is part of the solution to this world. He is not part of the problem. Humans are part of the problem. God is part of the solution. So we need to cooperate with God in order to become a solution to the mess in the world. In fact, we could say there is no salvation outside the mess in the world. The salvation is precisely in the mess, in this chaotic, messy world. That's where God is working. That's why Christ could say, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." God is in the midst of those who mourn. So in other words, God is in the midst of the mess in the world, never outside the mess. So there is no salvation outside the mess in the world. So that's the greatness of God. He could handle any mess, any messy situation, any chaotic, any broken situation, He could handle. And God could transform the messy situation and bring about a greater world where life could truly flourish. So we also need to cooperate with that process. We also should take the burden of the world, the sin in the world, the brokenness in the world, and then take the burden of sin onto our onto our shoulders, and transform it creatively. So it calls for costly involvement. It calls for real discipleship, real witnessing in this world. So therefore, we are in the best of times to become truly disciples of Christ. We are in the best world to witness to Christ. We should not be living in an imaginary world, or we should not try to withdraw into a kind of a fairyland. This is the perfect world, the best world we live in, so that we could transform it. We could make it a better world, and try to struggle to bring about the kingdom of God here on earth mightily. So this is an invitation for that great tasks. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all.